And you get an extra treat, too. Thanks, Dave. Today we are going to be hearing from Ashley Thomas, who is the Executive Director from Hope Street Ministry, the Greenhouse for People. It's located on 26th and Capitol. Hope Street has served the community for over 20 years and provides housing and healing to men, women, and children coming out of different forms of brokenness. Ashley attended UW-Madison on an athletic scholarship, where she received a BA in sociology. In addition, Ashley has a master's in theological studies from Trinity Evangelical Divinity School. Ashley is a passionate speaker, thoughtful and engaging, a leader and a friend. I got to know Ashley. I'll just give a little brief background how I got to know her. I belong to Impact 100 of Greater Milwaukee, I think was the official title. Mm-hmm. And Hope Street was one of our $100,000 grant recipients last year. So we are just thrilled to hear her. We're thrilled to hear her story and have her share it with us. So I asked her to come and share that story with us today. Ashley and her husband Taylor have a 3-month-old baby boy named Jedediah and a fur baby named Belle. They reside in Rubicon. In fact, I saw you.
I'll pop the picture up there.
Pop the picture up because he is just adorable. Welcome, Ashley.
Thank you. Thank you for the intro. Well, good morning.
Good morning.
I think I can talk loud enough, so I won't use the microphone. Can everybody hear me? Mm-hmm. Along with playing basketball, I also coach basketball, so I say I can be anywhere and I can talk pretty loud. Well, I will pop a. Oops, this got turned off for me, I think. I'll put this picture up. Okay. Yeah, so that's my son and my husband, Taylor. So we are just getting adjusted to life, but it has been honestly a very sweet blessing. But we're heading into that like 4-month, I guess they call it, like sleep regression, where he was sleeping 12 hours at night, and last night he decided to wake up at midnight and wake up every hour. So I'm running a little bit on caffeine this morning, but we'll just roll with it. So I'm super excited to be here. I love getting to share about Hope Street always, but especially when there's new people. And I just want to let you guys know right off the bat, like, I'm used to speaking to members in our community, and they'll interrupt me or they'll be talking or whatever. Nothing's going to throw me off. So along the way, if you have a question or I'm not making sense, just like interject. I'm here to share more with you, so I want to make sure that it's beneficial for you. So as Diane mentioned, we are the Greenhouse for People on 26th and Capitol. And oftentimes when people hear greenhouse, they immediately think like, oh, do you have plants? And I jokingly say, no, I kill plants and I try not to kill people. We have housing for men, women, and children, but that greenhouse metaphor is really what we use to kind of explain what we do. So if you think about a greenhouse, there's a couple of different kinds of greenhouses. There's the one where you've got little like seedlings and you get them to a certain point and then they go, like a nursery, and they go into a pot in your house, or you plant them in your yard. And then there's a type of greenhouse that maybe you've had a plant in your yard and it's not getting the right amount of sun, or you didn't water it enough or something like that, and it needs to be back in a protected and perfect environment because it's a little bit broken. And so we are that type of greenhouse where we understand that men, women, and children have gone through some sort of trauma, abuse, could be homelessness, some sort of relational struggle, could be drug or alcohol addiction, and the benefit would be to be inside of a safe environment for a period of time where they're loved and nurtured, receive the Son, Jesus, and are equipped to kind of be back on their feet. So that's where that whole greenhouse for people metaphor kind of sneaks in. I am going to start out with a video for you guys that will explain that more. I'm actually going to go here. If I get this stuff to work, I always get told because I'm a millennial, I'm supposed to know how to work technology, and I Don't let that fool you.
Hell is on earth, and we've seen it. A crackhead with a fading eye stumbled onto a porch, hoping to hit his pipe, but found the night air was too windy. Two girls poured gasoline on a drunk man, blacked out, but it was his addiction to alcohol that hurt even worse than those burns. A girl split between prison and the hospital so often her family assumed every phone call would be the one saying she's dead. A mom struggling with depression, guilt, raped, and convinced it was her penance for being a terrible person. This is the hell we've seen. And at the end of it all, we wondered if God would still care about us. Because if we're just dust and scars, can He really still love us? But God knew. He knew the scattered pieces of our lives could be made beautiful again. So He built a place, a home where people begin to believe hope might actually exist. Where men, women, and children look for some sign that their lives are not wasted. We all know what it's like to stand alone on the edge of a burned out valley of addiction and busted relationships. But in this home, with these people, we see that valley turn green again. And we don't stand on that edge alone anymore. We're protected from the rocks of abuse, violence, and fear. We're safe here. This is our home. It's like a greenhouse for people. Our Hope Street, a place full of faith and doubt, miracles and struggle. This place cultivates hope and gives us the kind of relationships we didn't believe were possible. That's why we grow here, and that's why we have a shot at growing out there. That's why we invite you to come visit, to see the miracles, the growth, to be part of this journey, and to be known.
So that just gives you, I think the number one thing I tell people all the time is like, you're going to remember stories. I can give you a whole bunch of information on what we do, and I will. But there's people's lives that are being impacted and transitioning through our space. And none of those stories look the same. Everybody's story is often very unique. And so because that's the case, we often say that we meet people right where they are. So there's no formula, there's no like, if you do this, then this will happen. It's sort of like, hey, we're here, we're gonna provide a home, we for sure have that. We have an apartment complex that has 24 units, and if it's a family, they get their own apartment unit. If it's a single man or woman, they would be placed with a roommate. And okay, what are your goals? What are some of the things that have held you back? And for some people, that's initially just getting set up with a counselor. It could be finding employment. It could be creating a budget and helping work through some debt. Again, it looks completely different for every single person. In that video it mentioned we kind of 3 value propositions. And those are: we cultivate hope, we build community, and we protect. So the obvious, we cultivate hope. We know that transformation takes place because of Jesus Christ. I'm not going to change anybody. I can present opportunities for people to make different life choices, but ultimately that's on them and the work of God. That second one, and also I should always say this too, when you put that cultivate in front of hope, oftentimes you got to disrupt a certain way of thinking in order for the new, truthful, good way of life to kind of settle in. So there has to be a breaking up before you can kind of instill the new and good. That second value proposition is build community. I was loving just even listening in here, like, community, we were meant to be in community. We aren't meant to do life alone. And so when somebody's having surgery or somebody's going through a hard time or has lost a loved one, we're meant to come alongside of each other and walk with each other. And so we do that at Hope Street. And that's oftentimes pretty tricky for people on the front end because there's a lack of trust. Many people have either burned bridges or had bridges burned themselves. And there's just this lack of like, do I trust you to have my best interest at heart? And so it's kind of building back up, what does it look like and mean to live inside of a healthy community? Where I know you well enough to know like, you're not doing well, or I can celebrate with you and I can see that you are doing well. And then that last one, oops, sorry about that, The last one is protect, and that kind of goes back again to the greenhouse for people, where we are on 26th and Capitol. When I say that, oftentimes people are like, oh, that's where you are. Yes, it is. And that's on purpose. We know that we're stuck kind of right in the mess of a lot of brokenness and a lot of stuff that's going on. And we wanted to be where people are and where people need support. And so our job inside of our building is to make sure that people feel safe. And so we do have a locked and secure building. People do have to buzz to get in and out, or they have a fob if they live there. It is a sober living facility. Even if somebody's like not going through recovery, it still is a space where we want people to feel like they can thrive in that. And then we do have some like basic rules. And again, a lot of it is just like, you're living in community. How do you want to be treated? How do you want your space to be treated? Noise level, drama level, you know, all of those things. And so those are some of the ways that we protect. I'll plop this up here really quick. So we do have a full staff. This has more than doubled since I had joined. So I've been at Hope Street almost a decade now. I've been the executive director in 2 months for 7 years, which I like, that's a whole other story, but just had this incredible opportunity to step into this role. And I honestly really had no idea what I was doing at first. I would be lying if I said that I did. This was my first job. Most of my life, like I had kind of alluded to in the beginning, basketball was the thing I was an expert in. And coming into this space has really equipped me and taught me how to just really love people and meet people where they're at, and understanding everybody has a story and what empathy actually can look like. And empathy extends a hand. It doesn't just say like, I'm sorry, and looks at people from afar. It kind of enters in and walks with people. And that was something that's part of my story with growing up, is my family did experience a season of homelessness. And so I knew someday I wanted to be able to give back and meet people in that place. So this is my team. One of the questions we get asked all the time is, do you have staff on site 24 hours? And the answer is no. We are there during the week. And the reason for that is that we want Hope Street to be the last kind of stop before people are back on their own. Well, when you go back on your own, you don't have somebody policing you inside of your home. You're kind of making your own choices. And not kind of, you are. And so we want our community to make the community what it is. So if you want it to be safe, then you're working on that on your own when staff is not there too. Now, do instances and things pop up sometimes? Yes, of course. Do I get a phone call when they do? Yes, of course. But we have found that when you return authority to adults, we all had seasons in our lives where we were kids and we needed to be told what to do because we didn't know anything yet, even though we thought we did. And then you eventually get to a stage and point where you're like, hey, I gotta start to make some choices and learn there's some good choices and there's some bad choices and there's some consequences and all of those things that fall into that. And so that's really what we're trying to do with our members. And oftentimes, because many have been incarcerated or been in and out of treatment centers or been homeless, that is a little bit foreign. They're used to people kind of telling them like, you gotta be up at this time, you gotta be here, you gotta do this. And while that made sense in the situations that they were in, now that they're back in life, it's like, hey, we want you to be a part of, again, a productive member of our society and community. What does that look like? How do we equip you to do that? How are you doing so far? I get really excited and I talk really fast sometimes. So if I'm talking too fast, let me know. We went through these value propositions. Sweet. So again, I'm just going to give you a little bit more like generic information about us. So you may have heard me mention members of Hope Street. There's a reason we say members. So if you think about a country club or a Bible study or any of your different groups, you're a member of it. You have certain expectations that you're going to receive from being a member in that group, and you also have certain things that you as a member of that group are to uphold. And so that's the same thing with at Hope Street. I'm not a landlord, they're not tenants. They're a member. At any point in time, if they choose to leave because they no longer want to be a part of what we're a part of, that's just fine. At any given point in time, if they're not following the few rules that we have, or it's just kind of turned into this place to just live and they're not working towards anything, I can also ask them to leave. And with that membership, also we do have a fee, because again, experience has taught us that when people are paying into something, you take care of it, you care about it. So when you're paying towards your own well-being or you're paying towards the space that you're living in, you take care of it. I'm a little bit biased, but I don't think so, and you can come down and check it out, but we have beautiful, beautiful apartments, and that's on purpose. Like I had mentioned, when my family had experienced that season of homelessness, we felt like we got people's just like kind of good enough, because it's like, hey, you don't have anything, you should be happy with something. Well, it does wonders to people's minds and to people's motivations when we give them the very best that we can give them, and they live into that and live towards something greater. And we can also relate that back to our Father, who obviously gives us always better than we ever would deserve. And so our spaces look like this. These are pictures from inside of our apartments. And so when a member moves in, a single adult would pay $450 and a family would pay $550. And that includes fully furnished apartment, all pots, pans, dishes, all of those things are provided. That includes utilities and then access to all the programming and stuff that we offer at Hope Street.
Excuse me.
Yes.
Is that a one-time fee?
That is each month.
Each month, okay.
Yep.
And what's transplant mean?
Yep, so just kind of sticking in our metaphor, of course, right? So somebody's been transplanted from wherever they are and they're moving into our space. It's just a one-time fee for like all the admin stuff we put together, and we like wash sheets and do all that stuff to get people ready. And the reason that we have that is for a while we had some people that would like say that they were coming and then they wouldn't show up. Or they would show up and they would stay for like a day, and then, you know, we put all that work into it. So it's just kind of a buy-in, an initial buy-in. And all of these things, we have funds available to support people, because I know some of you may be asking, like, well, if one of the ways that reasons people are coming to you is because they're homeless or they're out of work, probably don't have income. I don't have that much money, right? So we do have what's called our ACORN fund, and that can supplement people 1 to 3 months on the beginning or on the front end while they're finding employment or working towards finding some source of income. So money is never the end all be all, it is just part of the story. Because we know that when people leave us, they're gonna have to find an apartment or wherever they're living, and they're gonna have to know how to have a budget and pay for things. Good question. Anyone else? I'll just briefly touch on this. So we do have programming and obviously things available at Hope Street, and those rotate on a trimester basis. So we'll have anything that falls under kind of like life skills development. We obviously have our like spiritual classes, which are Bible studies, forgiveness classes. There's a bunch of, again, this is where my brain guys bear with me this morning. There's a lot of classes that fall under each of those categories, and we really do take a holistic approach to well-being. So it's your physical health, your spiritual health, your emotional and mental health, and your intellectual health. And everybody kind of grades themselves on where they think they are in each of those areas when they come in. And then again, that's where we meet people where they're at in terms of like, okay, if you feel like your emotional health isn't all there, then how do we support you with that? And kind of go from there. We do ask people to stay for at least 6 months, but we don't put a cap on how long they stay, as long as they're working towards, again, their goals and moving out eventually. We just have found that like it takes at least 6 months often for people to just kind of like take a breather and just kind of even figure out like what's next. And that also helps with like our building of community too. You know, if people are transient and in and out, you just don't have a chance to get to know them. But when you're with them for at least 6 months, we get to know everybody pretty well. And I think it's on another slide, but I'll mention it now. On average, a single adult will stay about 9 months, and a family will stay 18 months. Some of the other things that we do have, we have a Sunday community meeting twice a month, and once a month it's a meal, and again, just time to be together. The other time is we often ask, like, what is a topic you're interested in learning more about? So we've had somebody come in that's talked about, like, debt reduction and credit repair. We've had someone come in and talk about, like, what does it look like to stop smoking? And all of those different things. So it kind of just depends on what our members are interested in learning about, and then we'll try and find someone that can come in to speak to that. When it comes to determining what actually makes somebody a good fit for being a member, it's really 2 qualifications that our ministry director kind of goes through. A willingness to change, sorry guys, and a soft heart. So we say willingness because you can want to lose weight or start working out or whatever, but if you're not willing to take those steps towards that, it doesn't make a difference. And so she really does a good job of discerning like where somebody's at in that process. If they're just like pointing at like, well, this person and this and this and this and everyone else's fault and there's no ownership, they're maybe not ready to be at Hope Street. And that goes alongside that like soft heart too. It's like, yes, our circumstances sometimes place us in certain things that are beyond our control, but we usually have a role in why we're where we're at on some level. And so we can't really walk alongside anybody if they're not yet willing to even at least evaluate what that may be. They may not know why, but at least be willing to have that conversation. Okay, so just to kind of give you an idea, so these are currently how many people we have. We can have anywhere between 40 to 50, it all depends on how many kids we have or how many families. And if we have kids, people always ask, they're with their parent or parents. They're not just here with us. So I think right now we have 7 or 8 families and those 18 kids make up those families. On average, we'll see about 76 people a year. So if you look at, kind of where we're currently at, you'll get an idea that somewhere between 15 to 25 people a year either are transitioning out on their own because they're doing well or have been asked to leave because maybe they've relapsed or made a bad choice or whatever that looks like. So just to give you a little bit of an idea of what that looks like. Oh, I could have waited for this slide. Here's some ideas of some of the programming and things that we do offer. Some ways to volunteer. I always just say, you can look on our website for more information on this, but if you love people or if you like being with people, I say this is a great place for you. Can we find like admin tasks and different things for you to do? Absolutely, but the number one way you can make an impact at Hope Street is just quite simply by being in relationship with, whether if you like being with kids, we've got tons of kids. If you like being one-on-one with an adult, you could do that too. Okay, so then I'm gonna shift into another part. So this was Hope Street for, check my time, I'm doing good. This was Hope Street for the last 24 years. We had simply housing for men, women, and children. And that did evolve from simply just housing for men to eventually including women, to eventually we realized that the whole family really benefits from this kind of healing. Oftentimes we found that like a single adult maybe would be in a good position, but then they move out, and where are they often moving? Well, they're gonna go back to their family. But if that family is dysfunctional and still experiencing, generational stuff, they're gonna sweat back into that. And so we decided that we wanted to have an opportunity to bring that whole family into Hope Street. And that was a great idea, but it was also a very difficult idea and made things really messy and really hard for a while, as we had often 3 generations living under our roof. And so it's honestly one of my favorite things. I get chills like when I think about it, just seeing how grandma, maybe didn't have a good relationship with mom, is like working on that and, working through forgiveness and all of the things that may have happened while mom is also raising now children, and there may be some hurt and some things that have happened there. And then that family gets to leave together, and just seeing the transformation that takes place there has been really pretty neat. So again, hard at times, but really, really awesome. So while we were kind of just evaluating over the last 8 or 9 years, if we're a greenhouse and we have plants, people are constantly growing and we're constantly adjusting to what the needs are for people, how are we growing as an organization to continue to meet those needs without drifting too far, but just within like our own gift setting? And the answer to that, most often when people moved, they didn't want to leave Hope Street. One, I showed you the apartments, they're beautiful, our community is awesome, they feel loved and supported, they have this whole new life, right? And we want people to see like, nope, when you're ready to be transplanted, like we'll help furnish your new home, we'll sell it, we'll pray over your space, we'll be with you, you can do it. But oftentimes the fear was the community we're moving back into doesn't get it. And we obviously related and understood that. And so we said, well, what can we do to sort of have a off-ramp for our members that have been living with us, and an on-ramp for the greater community to begin to experience, essentially Christ, but this culture that we've created inside of our building. And going back to that thing that I mentioned a little earlier, basketball, I had been watching our kids. We have like 4 schools in our direct vicinity, and I would watch them every day, kind of, get out of school, and then they would just be like in alleys and oftentimes doing different things that I wish they weren't doing. And I was like, it starts with the youth. Our demographic in our Garden Homes neighborhood is like 67% under the age of 23.
Wow.
And many are on their own, don't have a parent. They're living like together, and they've somehow pulled money together to live in many, or some of the homes are vacant homes, essentially homeless. And I'm like, okay, well, what do we do to meet our youth where they're at? Because clearly that's obviously the need. And many times I would see kids, dribbling a basketball, and I remember just walking up to a couple of kids one day and saying like, where do you guys play around here? And they were like, well, I mean, in the winter we don't have anywhere. There's no indoor gym. Their schools don't even have gymnasiums. And I was like, okay. In the summer we would go down to the court, but sometimes it's not safe because it's, somebody's grounds for like a specific gang or whatever. And I was like, okay, so that doesn't always feel safe. So, but directly behind Hope Street at the time, there was this vacant building. And I remember watching the last landlords kind of like move their stuff out. And at the time I wasn't the director, but I had walked into the director's office and I said, I want to get into that building. I don't know why necessarily yet, but I just want to get into it. And I remember walking into it and thinking like, we could build a basketball court here. And as we were walking through more and we prayed and we brought some more people to the table to kind of pray and say like, what are the needs of this community? More things kind of came together, and we realized that there was more that the neighborhood needed access to within walking distance. And so, long story short, 7+ years ago, we bought that building for $1 from the city of Milwaukee. We eventually did a, I'm not joking, change collection fundraiser to raise the $130-some thousand we needed to tear that building down, and members from our community brought their change. We asked, our greater supporters to same thing, just for a year. I want you to just like, anytime you have change from cash or whatever, just put it in a bucket, and then if you're willing, bring and donate it to us. We raised that money, we tore that building down, and then we waited. And this was the hardest part of my job thus far. We waited. I knew the building that we wanted to build was gonna be a $4 million building. And it's not just like sure, someone write a check for us, but somebody probably could. Still trying to find that person, so let me know. But we knew that we were gonna need to do some fundraising. And I felt like I knew God was still calling us towards that direction. I just didn't know when. And there was lots of times where we would start, we'd think like, okay, now's a good time, and then we would have to pause. So biggest test of my faith to date, because and it's also trying to like keep people excited about the project too, right? Because it's like, okay, is this happening? Is this not happening? And there was times where I was like, I don't know. But 2 years ago, or actually about 1.5 years ago, we were sitting in a board meeting. We had just had a brand new board member join our group, and it was right after we had done like a promise groundbreaking. So we had prayed over the lot, and we had said, God, like, we just want to make the promise to this community that this space will be for them. I don't know if I'm still going to be the director here when you decide to do whatever you're going to do with it, but this space is for here. And we wrote little prayers and comments, and we put them up on the fence so that as people were walking by, they could read them and see. Well, not even like 2 weeks later, this board member is in the meeting, and we're all talking about like, well, what are we going to do? How are we going to get funding? How do we, present this to a bank? It doesn't look very good to a bank to have walk in as a nonprofit and be like, hi, can we borrow $4 million from you to build this community center? How are you going to pay it back? Well, over time with donations and, whatever. That board member said, so wait, all you're trying to tell me is that you need to get financing? And I was like, well, yeah, all I'm trying to tell you is that we need to get financing. And he was like, well, I can do that. And he had a connection, and I'm not joking, within a week, we had financing for the whole project, and in August, which I'm gonna show you guys a video, we opened that building to our community, and since that day, we have had over 100 kids inside of Shechem every single day that are there for after school programming, that are playing basketball, of course, in the gym, coming to get a snack, coming to just sit and be. And the other great thing is like those schools that are right around us that don't have gymnasiums during the day, they now are able to teach gym class, not just in a hallway or in a stairwell. They come over to Shechem and they teach gym class in a gym. And so our kids are moving their bodies and being active. And so it just has been full circle now our way of pouring back into the greater community. So there's not more housing. There's a basketball court. There's classrooms for, like I said, after school programming. We have a cafe. It's not really a cafe. It's where we have our snacks and coffee and tea and stuff for people to come in from the community to have. And then we have a resource center upstairs, and that has computers, and then that's where a lot of our partner organizations can come in and help people with like finding a job or putting a resume together or paying down debt or whatever that looks like. And it's just a space for the greater community to now be. And there is a membership, of course, fee associated with that too, so people aren't just walking in and out. There's buy-in, and there's like kind of 3 different levels, just like we have at Hope Street, where it's kind of pay what you can, pay what the fee actually would be, or pay for you and someone else. And so I want to show you a video of it, because me talking about it doesn't really do it justice. So this is from our grand opening this last summer.
As mayor of the city of Milwaukee, I can say today is one of the reasons that this whole community can be proud. And Shechem is a wonderful addition to Hope Street by providing more resources, not just to the surrounding community, but to the city of Milwaukee as a whole. And I'm proud, I really am proud to be a part of this moment. Ladies and gentlemen, Shechem is here.
There have been ups and downs, starts and stops, tears and laughter, and lots of opportunities to be stretched. A sincere and strong faith in our Father, in this community, and in this project has kept us going. Today, we stand in this beautiful building that is the culmination of so many people's time, talents, and treasure. I want to honor the people who have made it possible, because after all, what good is a building if there are no people? To the Garden Homes community and the whole city of Milwaukee, this space is for you. Our hope is that when you see it, you are reminded of the inherent dignity and worth that our Father has bestowed upon you. We hope you feel trusted, loved, and encouraged. Welcome to Shechem, a refuge, a safe place for you and I to grow and flourish. I'm going to pause that because you'll see, so this is Shechem and this is Hope Street, so it's literally right next door. They're not connected, you can't get from one building to the other building, but they're right next to each other. And this is right on Capitol. And this is honestly, I'm sorry, I'm so emotional about it, but this speaks volumes to our community, because it's a beautiful building that we would expect to see in Brookfield, anywhere. And as our kids walk in, the first few weeks of being open, they were like, "You guys built this here for us?" And I was like, "Yeah." And just watching how, and listening to our kids say, you know, out there before, like, we weren't friends, or we didn't really know how to trust each other, but we like come in here and we realize, like, we all just want a place to play ball, or we all just want a place to feel safe and not have to worry about what's going on out there. And so that's the way that our greenhouse for people, that's always been housing, has extended and expanded to pouring out and reaching out to the greater community so that they too can begin to see life can be lived differently and we all can be transformed and have the spaces and homes and communities that we want to have. It doesn't just have to be this dream. It can be each of us doing our small part towards making it a better place to be. So, couple thoughts, because I know this is going to come up. Shechem. Who knows what Shechem means? Anyone? So Shechem means a refuge. In the Bible, in the Old Testament, you'll see a lot of really messy, hard things happened at Shechem. The raping of Dinah happened there. There was a mass killing there. But also it's a space where Joshua says those famous words like, "As for me and my household, we will serve the Lord," as he's bringing the Israelites into the promised land. Shechem is a place where broken things have happened, but then you fast forward to one of my favorite stories in the Bible, the woman at the well. And that well is in Shechem. It's Jacob's well. And it's that moment where Jesus had to go through Samaria. He intentionally met this woman at that well and said, the kingdom of God is for you too. And so for us, our Shechem is just that. It's welcoming people to the well. When you walk into our building, you may have seen it in the video, we do have a makeshift well. It's not really a well, but it's a little like pond. And that's just symbolic and saying like, hey, like the living water is for you too. And like you have a chance to live life and go a different way. And as you do, bring a friend. And so that's why we decided to name it Shechem. All right, that was kind of most of it. I wanted to save room afterwards for kind of questions too. Dan, is there anything else? Okay, I have about 10 minutes. Is that right? Yeah. Give or take? Okay. Yeah.
Within that community, we have a saying, God's work our hands. And I'm just touched by your personal story. You know, God is using you to kind of go up the mountain to see the promised land. You had a vision. And wow. What I'm wondering is, how much was basketball for you as a child, that door to the promised community of support? And was that a door for you? How God is working through your personal story.
Yep. Yeah, it was my outlet, absolutely.
I was wondering.
Yeah, yep, yeah, and I had the great opportunity. I mean, I went to college on a full scholarship at TUW-Madison, and it saved my life, honestly. And I jokingly say, because people think about Madison and they don't think Jesus is there. Yes, there's a lot that happens at Madison. But he is there, and it was my first weekend actually on campus. I got invited to a Bible study.
Can I ask you another question?
Yep.
When you went to Trinity Seminary, were you a real ringer and went there on a scholarship to play basketball? There was a league that I played in. I went to seminary down in Hyde Park, and we played Trinity.
Yeah.
And they were tough.
Oh, were they? So I did.
know if they brought in the ringers.
So no, I didn't even know there was a basketball team for Trinity at the time. I just finished my master's like a little over a year ago. So.
Just checking.
Yep. Nope. But, yeah. Yes.
How do people that need your services find your services?
Mm-hmm.
How do they find out about it?
Yep. So Hannah on our staff is our social worker, and she meets with a lot of our partner organizations. So she'll go to treatment centers and present. She'll go even to prisons and see if people are looking for options for when they get out. Word of mouth is honestly the biggest thing. People leave and they're like, you have to go here. So I would say that's the biggest, or people are just walking by, otherwise treatment or prison. Like POs, social workers, case managers, that's Hannah's job, is to stay connected to them.
Okay. And for cooking,
Mm-hmm.
do people you don't do meals or anything there?
So everybody has their own apartment. So yeah, they prepare their own meals. We do have family dinner on Tuesday nights, which is always a simple just soup and bread. And you can come down, and they've actually been watching The Chosen during that time too. But outside of that, meals are completely on people's own. And we do have a food pantry directly behind us, and they do offer meals. I'm trying to think of what it's been since COVID, but I think it's 3 times a week. And so some of our members that are in a little bit harder situations will go there too.
How many apartments do you have?
24 total.
24.
Yep. And some are 1 bedrooms, most are 1 bedroom, some are 2, and some are 3.
What was the building originally?
So it's always been an apartment building. The really neat thing is we've had several members over the years that have come in and said it used to be the place that they got high.
Place of what?
The place that they went to get high.
So there was no tie to the big Catholic church
Nope.
behind?
Nope. So yeah, it's like we say, the building itself has been redeemed because it's no longer that, obviously. Yeah. But yeah, no, we partner, the church is super supportive of what we do and we work with them, but
Right.
Yep.
Okay.
What are your sources of funding beyond the membership?
hmm yeah, so membership covers about 20% of our overhead. And then we have individuals, foundations, churches, and corporations that contribute towards what we do. So it is all privately funded, no government funding. And the reason we've done that, we've looked into it over the years, but there's just too much with like our faith and just making sure we're able to share and say what we think is important. And so we don't have that part
You
of
got
it.
any deep pocket Milwaukee Bucks who are aware of this?
We do. Yeah, I actually happen to be friends with Giannis, his girlfriend, so we do have some connections there. They've been, and that's why you saw Bango. He like can do things like that, and he's shown up and brought stuff for the kids at Christmas and stuff. So it's been neat to see how they've been plugged in. Yeah.
So, what would you say you need the most from folks like us?
Yeah. I'm gonna start out with this, and I know it always sounds super cliche, but please know this is like sincere, is prayer. If you don't wanna make it down there, but you would be willing to pray. I'm sharing and I'm showing you really awesome things that have happened. It is also an incredibly hard place to be at times. And my team does an incredible job, but it takes a toll. And so I would just say like prayer for protection over our spaces. We've been super blessed and never had like major things happen in either of our buildings, but we also know that's because we believe it's covered. So just please pray. The other thing too is I do see a couple men in here. We're always looking for men. Women are great. Come on in. We love you. Keep coming. But our Shechem, our new building, is full of young men. And that again goes back to the predominant population that's in our community. It's again under 23, but also men. And so we're just looking for mentors and people that would just be willing to kind of come in and talk. And many of our kids have grown up without fathers, and so just that love that comes from that would be the second thing. And then the third thing I mentioned, our apartments are fully furnished, so if you're ever like getting rid of pots, pans, or dishes and getting something new, or towels, or furniture, all of our stuff inside of our buildings is all donated. We have a little bit of budget to go out and buy stuff if we need it, but it's usually donated by people. So I would say that. That family dinner that I mentioned, we do accept, like, if you ever want to make an extra batch of soup when you're making soup and bring it down, we have a big freezer so we can put it in that and pull it out for when we need it for one of those meals. So those would be the three kind of biggest ways, I would say. And now you know about Hope Street, so sharing about it with somebody too.
If you need a babysitter, PD and I will fill in so you can get a good night's sleep.
Okay, thank you. That would be awesome.
That's a real need.
Yeah, he's fun to play with, so that would be. And I can't complain too bad because literally up until like the last 2 days, he's been sleeping 12 hours for the last month and a half. But now we're kind of hitting
We'll
the
be
bump.
good at 1 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, okay. Well, I'm not, so that's great. Good. I did bring a few flyers that are over there, so feel free to take those with you. Our website is always another really great place to just take a look if you're looking for answers for something.
Ashley, what age kids come in? All ages?
Into Shechem?
Mhm.
Yep. So it is all ages. I would say we see mostly it's middle and high school, and I think that's just because of the schools that are right in our vicinity are middle and high school, so they like come out of those schools and just come right over. We can have kindergarten, grade school kids, kindergarten to 5th grade. We just ask that a parent is still in the building if those kids are with us. Middle school and high school, they have a waiver and things are signed from their parents. Their parents know that they're there, which has also been another awesome thing, getting to interact with parents and them being like, I'm so glad I know my kid's here when I get off of work, as opposed to doing whatever they're normally doing. And they can just be in the building without a parent.
So when they come in for homework help?
Yep.
Should they, do they need waivers for that and a parent in case they're younger than junior high?
Yep, so Everybody signs up kind of on the front end to become a member, and that's where you would sign up with your parent if you're under 18. And then you can just kind of come from then on, unless you're in that K-5 age group. And there's a little leniency there if it's like a former Hope Street member, or like all of our members at Hope Street, the building next door that live there, they're all automatically members at Sheckham while they live there, obviously. And so those kids can all come and go. I say please.
It's so well structured. Is this coming out of a grassroots model of faith communities nationwide? Because, or have you had to, from the very beginning, think the whole process out? Have you had help as far as this is how we're gonna do it?
Yeah. It's morphed over the years, Hope Street in general, I will say. And I can say my gift is having a vision. I'm really good at creating work for people. So I don't always necessarily know what it's practically going to look like, but I've always been able to see like this is where we're headed. So
this wasn't a model that came out of social justice in Trinity or anything?
no.
Okay.
Yeah, no. It was just kind of something God laid on my heart. Yeah.
Thank you, Jesus. You're a gift.
Yeah,
This is great, yeah.
It's been humbling. Well, I'll stick around afterwards too a little bit, so if anybody wants to. But thank you for listening.
Thank you, Ashley. Thank you.